Okay, I'm back, and we are discussing the horror story. This will be 28B. This is going to be several different videos separated so you can take a break, so I can take a break. I had to stop for a while, longer than I thought. Okay. We left off with, as you can see, something that you've seen before. Reinvent the wheel every bloody time you do it. They know all this. They can find the article. They have the article that you've seen that I just showed you from 2007 through 2010. If you haven't, go back and look at 28 prime or 28A. We're in 28B. So you file a claim, then you get remanded, goes back to BVA, gets remanded again, bump, 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 go away. And you never, during this time, when you're being bounced, this is ex parte, meaning you don't get to see what's going on behind the remands. Remember, you've seen this before. You're not going to get discovery. There is no cross-examination, no depositions, no getting affidavits. Okay? There are no rules. It will be done behind your back. You don't know what Victor Bravo Alpha is going to send up to the board, and the board is not going to show you. And they know exactly what they're doing. And if you file a Privacy Act demand, they will refuse to show you. Privacy Act demand, what did you send to the board? We refuse. Now, take a look at this. National Center for PTSD, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. See this? 2017. See this? Very nice letterhead, advancing science and promoting understanding of traumatic stress. Published by the National Center for PTSD, VA Medical Center, North Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont. This is a VA publication. And this is the quarterly. This keeps coming out. Who's this article by? Here we go. Okay. What's the title? Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, PTSD, and Cardiovascular Disease. This will sound familiar with what I showed you earlier in 28A. Okay? When you have an event, physiological trauma, repeated reminders of traumatic events trigger a cascade of neuronal, hormonal, and immunologic effects that damage the body over time. Those studies have found patients with psychological trauma and PTSD are at greater risk of a variety of chronic physical ailments. Associations with cardiovascular disease, CVD, are particularly concerning. CVD remains the leading cause of death worldwide and accounts for over $316 billion annually in healthcare costs. Okay, you can go through this. CVD, smoking, diabetes, of course. But some of the earliest studies to focus specifically on cardiovascular consequences of psychological trauma Examine the impact of wartime stress. 1989. So we have a reference to a 1989 article. This is the VA. Do you see this? Wide range of traditional and novel CVD risk factors, psychosocial factors, stressful major life events, accounted for approximately 1/3 of the population attributable risk of heart attacks. Therefore, targeting PTSD and other psychological conditions, go back to the article that I showed you in 28A, was by psychologists. This is the VA. You can go through population studies. The article goes on and on. In the majority of studies described above, PTSD and CVD were assessed at least a decade after trauma. However, an analysis of over 60,000 participants from the Millennium Cohort Study investigated the more immediate cardiovascular results of trauma and PTSD over a mean of 5.6 years of follow-up. Patients with exposure, what kind of exposure? Combat exposure, were significantly more likely to have incident CHD by self-report and by diagnostic coding in medical records as compared to those deployed but without combat exposure. So if you were green zone, it's not the same as grunting around on the ground in direct combat exposure. That's the way it is. Here we go. CVD risk. You see all this? So the VA knows all this because this is their stuff. They have a quarterly on PTSD. They're talking about the different studies here. Let's go down through this list. It tells you where the studies... Oh, wait a minute. Look at this, 2010. Okay. Look at this. Other studies have explored a shared genetic vulnerability to PTSD and CVD. So they started to do a genetic study. Well, here we go. Featured articles. Okay. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I think you get the point, which is that CVD is serious, and they know about it, and they know that stress can do it. A prospective study of PTSD and early-age heart disease mortality among Vietnam veterans, implications for surveillance and prevention. Okay. Risk for incident hypertension associated with post-traumatic stress disorder in military veterans and the effect of post-traumatic stress disorder treatment. Hypertension. This is the VA's own document. We're leading up to something. Short break. Okay, so I'm back. A prospective study of post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms and coronary heart disease in women. See how this is being dissected down and down and down so that PTSD is serious. It causes heart problems, or it can cause heart problems. and the heart problems may erupt a long time afterwards. We are thumbing through the VA's own article. Let's see. Additional citations. See how this is what is called scholarship. This is what is called research. Further, it is open research, open to the world, and it has not been retracted. So now you know what real research looks like. It has a name, it has a date, it has authors. Okay. Let's take a look at something. First of all, let's go to the top. Post-traumatic stress disorder and cardiovascular disease. As a library, NLM, what is NLM? Oh, it's NIH, National Institute of Health, National Library of Medicine. In fact, let's go down here and take a look at this. It's a government website. It's a government website. This is being published to the world on a government website. This is open for review by everybody in the world, and it has not been retracted. All right. What's the title? Post-traumatic stress disorder and cardiovascular disease. What's the date? 2011. The Open Cardiovascular Medicine Journal. Okay. How can you get PTSD? Not that hard. Cardiovascular alterations associated with autonomic arousal. These are the nerves that work all the time, even when you're asleep, such as breathing, digestion, etc. And cardiovascular health outcomes have long been reported to be associated with PTSD or wartime traumatic exposure. Persons suffering from PTSD and chronic PTSD have been shown to have increases in basal heart rate and blood pressure, and increased heart rate and blood pressure in response to stimuli such as loud sounds, visual slides, remind them of the trauma. Okay? What this is saying, this is the National Institute of Health is saying PTSD can cause serious heart problems, and repeated reminder of an event is part of PTSD. It is very serious. It goes on. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. Okay? But they can't do animal studies on people. So you can't take people and give them PTSD and then study to see if their heart is somehow affected. You can do it with animals, but you can't do a test like that with people. So what you do is you find people who have PTSD, and then you take a look over long periods of time at how their heart is functioning. PTSD can change your cholesterol. PTSD can wreak things on your body for a very long time. It can work that way. Cerebral vascular disease. Same article. We're just moving along. It had a chart. Nobody at VBA can read and understand this matter. If they could, they wouldn't be at VBA. PTSD and cerebral vascular disease. It can affect the way your brain works by virtue of the plumbing. Remember something. Arteries bring blood in. Okay, veins take things out. That's the simple plumbing. Okay. So they're using different models. See, all this. Here we go. Here's some of the authoritative references. Shouldn't Victor Bravo Alpha, VBA, be looking at these references? Short break. They don't have to do anything. VBA does not have to do anything. Oh, but they're going to be so careful when you go and you file a claim. They're really, Congress said they're supposed to be very sensitive to vets and so forth. We're moving to the horror story. Oh, look, more research. More research. This is right on the National Institute of Health website. And here's another one. NIH. What exactly is PTSD? Well, if you want to take a look at that, I think we're all generically aware of what PTSD is. But not VBA. Why is that? But not VBA. What? No, come on now. VBA is extremely sensitive. They're sensitive to their paycheck. And the faster they move you along, the bigger bonus they get. I've shown you that in IG reports. Time for a break. Okay, returning. Victor Bravo Alpha, VBA, is under no obligation to read and understand any of this. You have to prove it. You have to dig it up and present it. As far as they're concerned, when you submit a claim, they don't know nothing, as the great philosophers say. This is a federal government website. None of it matters. How about this? This is the Center for Disease Control. Remember all the COVID vaccines and so forth? CDC, government, U.S. government. What mental health disorders are related to heart disease? Now, you see, you can find this on Google. You can find this on Google. So this is just CDC. What mental health disorders are related to heart disease? Let's find out, because VBA can't find this out on their own. Uh-oh. PTSD. PTSD. Oh, well, heart disease, Mental health is associated with risk factors for heart disease before a diagnosis of mental health disorder and during treatment. Directly, okay? People experiencing PTSD over a long period of time may experience physiologic effects on the body, such as increased cardiac reactivity, blood pressure, heart rate, blood flow to the heart, and higher levels of cortisol. Over time, these physiologic effects can lead to calcium buildup in the arteries, metabolic disease, and heart disease. So, this is CDC. Post-traumatic stress disorder, stroke, heart failure, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, coronary artery calcification, heart attack. CDC. The VA can tell you, we are not allowed to look at this. We don't look at this. We don't know this. Of course they know it. They'll look you right in the eye and they will lie to you. Victor Bravo Alpha. CDC, same article. You notice the nature of scholarship. In 28A, I showed you scholarship. Psychologists, Journal of the American Medical Association. References. I showed you the list, authoritative references. You can look each of those articles up. Look at this. It's all out there. And VBA will say, and I'm going to get to the dangerous part, probably in the next video. VBA will say, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know. It goes on. And on. So far, I've shown you over 100 references, scholarly public research, to the effect that PTSD can cause heart problems. From the different articles I've shown you, over 100 references. Here's something from Yale. This is not a research article. This is just generic information. So even somebody at VBA, Victor Bravo Alpha, there's a 50% chance they could read and understand this. Read and understand. There's a 50% chance they can't even understand this. They won't look for it. So if you send them this, they still won't understand it. That's 50% of them. Another large percentage won't even care. They won't read it. They don't have to understand it. So what? Stress management can keep your heart healthy. This is just Yale Medicine generally giving simple advice to people. There are many ways stress can affect the heart. Long-term or chronic stress can cause higher levels of coronary artery disease, CAD. Now, this is generic, but it's Yale. I'm telling you, half the people at VBA can't read and understand this. If you give it to them, they can't understand this part. This is not argument. And then another percentage will say, so what? How many days has this claim been in? We have to move this thing along. I'm sorry. Denied. I've shown you the Office of Inspector General. The problem is quantity to hit the bonus amounts. What is considered to be a stressor or what is stressful for one person versus another is subjective. So you get into combat experience where people are blown up, burned, shot, dropped off of aircraft, fast-moving vehicles, run over by the same, poisoned by environmental exposure, wondering what's going to happen around the next turn, the next door that opens, every bloody day for a deployment. Not talking about green zone people, talking about people in the real world outside the wire who are doing dangerous things. They are going dangerous places. So this just says talk to your healthcare. Okay? Lancet is the top British medical journal. What does it say? Oh, high stress, 2.5 times more likely to have a heart attack than those who had low stress or no history of depression, Gaffney says. Oh. There are studies after studies after studies after studies. There we go. Yale Medicine. A very simple article. Okay, we're going to do another video on this one because now we are into fraud and deception. And I'm going to show you how it works. We're going to have multiple remands. And finally, through an ex parte process, we're going to have a decision. And you will not believe the decision. It's going to involve a twist in the law about what is an adequate medical examination. So 28C is going to be the story of this case about a World War II combat vet, Purple Heart, severely burned, participates in 3 campaigns, including the bloody progress up through Italy in World War II, and has a gigantic layer of scar tissue extending over a large part of the side of his body. He's going to die of a heart attack, coronary artery disease. Multiple remands, and VBA. Well, wait till I show you what VBA does and how the Veterans Law Judge gets stuck. Listen to what I said. The Veterans Law Judge will be stuck by the law. And VBA will have disregarded everything that I've shown you so far, even the VA's own materials about stress, traumatic PTSD causing heart problems that go on for a long, long time. When I talk about this, I want you to think about people you know who have been severely burned, large parts of their body covered by scar, and how every day they're reminded just by getting dressed of that incident and that recovery. And if you know anybody who's had third-degree burns, you know how painful that was and remains. That gigantic scar, psychologically, may never heal, even if physically someone can carry on with their life. That is the cost of warfare. The mission comes first. He is a Purple Heart winner. He dies. Wait till you see how his widow is treated. This is how your widow could be treated. He dies. Watch what they do to his widow. Watch how long it takes. This could be your widow. Think about this. We're going to go to the next 28C, and we're going to talk about this case. For now, if you want, you can look this up. You can look this up yourself. Okay? You may have noticed on some of the dates where I copied these, it did not take a long time to find these articles. Nor did it take a long time to look for this case. VBA will not lift a finger to help you. Nor will they incorporate what they already know. They are under no requirement to use common sense. And watch what they do to this widow. Okay, 28C is going to come separately.